Mr. Shuman, you've been recently appointed a new post within the government. Can you tell us about that new post?
Well, good afternoon, Bibi. Let me first say it's good to be here. The post is a technical post. It is advising the Honorable Minister of Public Works on civil aviation. As you know, the maritime sector contributes about 80% to the economy, and the aviation and land transport section contributes collectively 20%. Sorry, this I'll take this off. We're 6 feet away, so I'm sure it'll be crispy now. So yeah, the aviation and land transport contributes less than 20% or 20% or so. And if you look at what has happened or has not happened in aviation, we have not been able to get direct flights to and from the US and Guyana because of the Cat 1 status. I think they're working on that. We have not been able to grow the tourism industry. We don't have direct access to Europe. 6 out of the 10 regions have indigenous peoples that require aviation to access them. So it is a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done. And I think it gives me and our membership an opportunity to fulfill part of our manifesto. So it is, if you look at it, every night we have aircraft flying over Guyana. I'm sure that when we sit down with the minister and the government at this point, is that we have to look at how we could change Guyana to be the gateway to South America. And the only way we could do that is in conjunction with that deep water port, that we find the corresponding aviation network to do that. Well, yes, I have. It's unfortunate that when people look at Lenox Shuman, they see, an Indigenous leader who dresses in a loincloth from time to time. But no one ever sits there and say, look, here's a guy who has 20 years of experience, probably one of 4, if I'm to count, maybe one of 3 now, who are still qualified to fly heavy equipment in and out of Guyana. I'm rated all the way up from small planes up to a Boeing 767. You only have 3 other people in Guyana with that kind of qualification, of which one of them is in the GCA, one of them is flying for BK, and the next one I think is slowly into retirement. So that leaves me as the only person with that kind of knowledge in Guyana. Under the previous administration, I had applied. It took them to 2017 or close to 2018 to get back to me on that application. I have always had a passion for aviation. I've always had a passion for national development. That is why I came back to Guyana. And I think that this is the perfect opportunity to be able to let that passion shine.
You spoke a little bit about international travel, but
Well, tomorrow I meet with the Honorable Minister and Minister Edghill. And I think one of the things that we have to first do is take a look, do an analysis of what has been done or what has not been done. We have to look at the structures of airports, the structures of airspace, the training, a whole host of things, and compliance, obviously, whether it's ICAO, EASA, or if we've got a separate standard by ourselves, if it's just a GCAA standard. So we have to do a full analysis of the structures that exist, whether it is equipment, air crew, or airports, airspace, any of those. We have to look at all of those things and see how we could ensure that once again, when all of these things come together, that at some point in the future, we could look again becoming the gateway to South America. So it's a tremendous amount of work. I feel quite confident that we can get it done. And I think also, I can't speak on the administration's behalf because I'm not in that position. But I will say, based on what His Excellency presented at the inauguration, is a bold vision. And I'm very hopeful that we could contribute to that vision.
all right, I'm using that question a little bit to get into the political aspect of your life. You contested the March 2nd elections, the first you contested, and majority of your support base would come from the hinterland regions, as I was made to understand. I'm sure they're looking forward to see how you can use this position you're given to this new government.
Once again, you've got 6 out of the 10 regions in Guyana where Indigenous peoples or Amerindians have to access their communities by airplanes. We are given a unique opportunity to be able to massage that system so that it fits not only the operators but the communities. I don't know what the formula is as yet, but I hope within the next week, week and a half or so, I would have an opportunity to meet with the operators to be able to get an analysis from the GCA and also to be able to look at the structure of the airways, airports in Guyana or airstrips, and find how we could have that happy marriage. But at the end of it, we will still be able to deliver the kind of services to the Indigenous communities in those regions while we are also meeting a national and international goal. So I don't see it as far removed from what we had intended on doing.
Okay. Some persons would have raised concerns about you being from another party and part of a joined the list and taking up this position. Does it in any way conflict with an agreement signed by?
Well, under Article 6 of the tripartite agreement, it states that we are not going to go and join government and so on and so forth. And I think Mr. Ramkaran very clearly explained the context of why that agreement or how that agreement was formulated. Basically, we were calculating on a minority government, that if there was a minority government, we would not just join that government for our own benefit in that sense. But since there is already a majority, then that point becomes null. It is a non-event. So for us, we don't see that as an issue. It is a technical position, and we fully intend on honoring the agreement we signed.
You were the person that was put forward by your party to sit in the National Assembly.
Right.
Have you discussed with your party what happens now?
We met before this position came up. We had a discussion on it. We fully agreed that we are going to work towards fulfilling our manifesto to a great extent. And however we can get that done, we intend on getting it done. But I want to point out there are 2 articles in the Constitution of the Liberty and Justice Party. Article 4.1 talks about non-coalescing unless it's in the national interest. That's from the Liberty and Justice Party's Constitution. But Article 4.2 of that very Constitution, Liberty and Justice Party's Constitution, also says that we are going to put the national interest above party's interest. Now, it would be hypocritical of me to be offered something that is in the national interest and just refuse it just because of political ideology. We are here for the national development. I have seen, the manifesto of the People's Progressive Party, Civic, and I will tell you that if that manifesto gets satisfied, you are going to see a lot of development for Guyana. And I'm very happy about what I would have seen in the manifesto for Indigenous peoples. I will not go to their defense because I think they could do that on their own. But I will say that if their manifesto gets satisfied for Indigenous peoples, then we are going to be in a far different place. And I take you back to Bornham's governance or rule for 28 years. We saw Indigenous lands or Amerindian lands being titled at 2.28 per year. That is under a 28-year PNC rule. Then you look at the PPP's rule, it was or governance, it was 1.67. And then you go to the APNU AFC, and it was -1. So it is a non-issue at this point. I can't say that I'm going to jump for joy because we still have a lot of work to do. There's a tremendous amount of work to do. But in any case, I would take a 1.67 in terms of progressing Amerindian land titles over a -1 any day, because it is progress, measured progress. It may be not fast enough, but also His Excellency did commit to ensuring that Indigenous lands are titled. The Honorable Minister Sukai also committed that they're going to aggressively pursue the Amerindian land titling program. And Bibi, I want to point this out. When Guyana became independent, the only conditionality upon which we gained independence was Indigenous land title. That is why the Commission of 1966-1969 was established, to ensure that commitment for independence was met. And here we are, we're still working through it. So going forward, I think we've got a tremendous opportunity and a tremendous amount of work to do to get there.
Has your party decided on who will now take up that seat in the National Assembly?
I will still be taking up the seat. We have already discussed that, and that has been settled. It's been already sent into the Guyanese Elections Commission, and we move on from there.
Isn't there a conflict sitting in the National Assembly and advising the government, being employed by the government?
Not in the least. If you look at the agreement that we signed with the New Movement and a New and United Guyana, is that before we make decisions in the National Assembly, that has to be vetted and endorsed by all three parties. So it is not that Lenox Shuman is going to walk in there as a lone ranger or a hired gun or anything to be able to disrupt or not disrupt. We still have an obligation. We sign an agreement in earnest, and we intend on honoring that agreement. And that agreement says that before a decision is made or placed on the floor in the National Assembly, that we have that discussion. So I'm being hired in a technical capacity. It is not in a political capacity. And it is an evolution. There is nothing in politics that is static. It is fluid and it is dynamic. And we have to be able to change with it.
Both of the larger parties, or the parties which gained the most votes in the joinder of list, the leaders, yourself and Mr. Ramkaran, were employed in these technical positions. How can you assure your base that your voting in the National Assembly on bills, motions, whatever it is, would not be biased towards, well, now your employer?
Well, once again, we'd have to go back to the agreement. The joinder agreement says that before we put any bill to the table, before we vote on a motion, we have to have agreement between all three. So it is not that Lenox Shuman is walking in there simply on his own and making decisions based on his own emotions or his own logic. It is something that will be properly ventilated with the other two parties in the joinder, so that when the time comes for that decision to be made, that it has the endorsement of all three of the joinder.
And the three parties can assure their support base that everything will be done in their interest at the end of the day.
That is why we signed the agreement. We cannot sign an agreement and then our first act is to walk back on it. The agreement was put in place for the very same situations that you're talking about, the same issues that you're bringing up. So when we look at the agreement that we signed, we have an obligation to all three parties, and by all three parties, it obviously includes our voter base, that the decisions that are being made is being made with a solid endorsement of all three parties.
All right. Thank you very much, unless there's anything else you'd like to add.
No, I just I just wanted to say thank you. It's been a tiring 5 months. We look forward to working with this democratically elected government. I'm happy that we've staved off a dictatorship, as I'm sure the majority of the country is. And we look forward to getting the work done for the people. We're here for the country. We're here for the people of Guyana, and that is what we intend on working towards.